Everybody, it's Anthony Brogdon. Oh man, y'all gonna like the lady that's on the channel today. She gonna blow your mind. Oh, I'm super excited. I've talked to her a few times and said, please come on the show. Share that Black history because she's committed to keeping it, preserving it, and her and the committee that she works with. Not far from me here in Detroit. Y'all gonna hear the story because there are historical significance in her hometown, and she wants the people to know, not just Black, but whites and anybody else who want to come through, to understand how Black folks in particular have played a role in the development of the community. And so I'm excited. Here I am. Oh man, let me tell you, my name is Anthony Brogdon, and I give it to you straight, no chaser. I come here to blow your mind through the people who come on the show, to intoxicate you, not DUI, but intoxicate you with this, what I like to call, in my term, my hashtag, good Black history. Oh man, I'm on an emotional high. I just came out of a town not far from where she is, up in Jackson, Michigan. I drove up to the library and I blew them away. The lady had to click the lights and tell him he got to go because we got to close. I told them some stories that they had not heard of rich Black people that lived in the 1800s. You know what I do, my friends. You know I got this movie out titled Business in the Black, toured to over 40 cities across America. It's streaming on Amazon. Watch this. You know that I have taken it to the next level and I've done this book, which has become America's #1 Black business history book on the market. This book is good. Get you a copy of this. I promise you, you're going to be, I had one lady told me she keep it in her purse. It's not even a big book. She says she keep it in her purse because she will, cite some of the facts in here. And people like, man, where you get that from? She pulls out the book. The lady, she's turned on, 24, 25 people who bought a copy as a result of her recommendation. So go to businessintheblack.net. And I'm speaking around the country. I just told you I was somewhere yesterday, and I'll be somewhere tomorrow. I'll speak on a street corner to share this history. This has become my mission, everybody, and go to their website to know where I'll be. I got mine, and I'm working in conjunction with a museum in Mount Bayou, Mississippi in July. I'm going down there and I helped expand what they were offering, not just the one day on Saturday, but Thursday we having sessions, Friday we having tours and a gala. I go places because I like to two-step. We gonna two-step together down in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, and we're gonna drink some moonshine. How about that? I don't mean no derogatory. You get where I'm coming from, everybody. And then do this. Subscribe to Strong Inspiration. It's free. It just let me know you like me. And hit the like button on this video. The sister good looking too. Y'all gonna trip on this one. Oh my God. We ain't playing with y'all, and she ain't playing with you neither. So hit the like button on this one, hit the notifications bell so you get a ding, a shock, or something to let you know there's new content. Because every week I'm releasing a new video. And for Black History Month, I did 2, 3 of them a day. All right. And then tell somebody about it. Don't keep it to yourself. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. Strong is my favorite word. And in my world, strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the strong soul sister on the channel today. Come on and tell us your name. Let's get it on. I'm happy you here.
So good morning, Anthony, and I'm really excited to be on your show today, and I really appreciate your enthusiasm. It's wonderful. So I'm Joyce Hunter, and I am a founding member of the African American Cultural and Historical Museum of Washtenaw County. Oftentimes when I tell people we have a museum here, they're not aware of it. They always think I'm talking about the Charles H. Wright Museum in Detroit. So we were formed, and our mission is to tell the stories that are not being told about African Americans in Washtenaw County. And so we've been at this since 1993. And some of you are probably hearing about it for the very first time. So I'm just so excited to be able to tell the story in different venues and interviews, etc.
All right, let me
I
stop you there. I mean no
Okay,
disrespect, because I got to let people. I like my no audience to get to know, who's on the show just a little bit.
right.
And so, where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Michigan, raised in Muskegon, and I've been in the Ann Arbor area for many years now.
All right. That for everybody, for y'all to get to know this, Ann Arbor. I'm in Detroit, as y'all know. Ann Arbor is what, about 40 minutes at most from Detroit. So
That's correct.
it's a college town. The University of Michigan is there, and they got all them educated, think thought people up there from that great institution of U of M. Go Blue. And so um uh when you grew up in Muskegon, did you grow up in a black neighborhood in Muskegon?
I grew up in Muskegon Heights, which is predominantly black, although gentrification is starting to happen there as well now.
Okay.
But that's where I grew up.
Did you know white people growing up?
I did, and my school was probably mixed 50-50 at one point, and then
Okay.
it gradually changed to predominantly black. Muskegon Heights High School.
Did you, or did the white people live on the other side of the railroad tracks in Muskegon compared to where you live?
At one point, you had mixed neighborhoods, and it also gradually shifted. So you could say they ended up on the other side of the railroad tracks, but at one point it wasn't that way. And because of the housing now, you're getting others coming back into the neighborhood, twice coming back into the neighborhood and buying property.
uh, if you don't mind this, how did your family get to Muskegon? Where did they come from? Where's the plantation, the slavery in the South, what have you, in your family,
Well,
man?
my family came from Mississippi. Uh, and so what happened was my grandfather, Eddie Williams, who came here, and then he gradually brought others here. And when they came, they stayed with family members in Muskegon that was already there until they could get established. My grandfather was um, married to my grandmother, Ida, and she died when my mother was 7. So he basically never remarried and he raised the kids. And he did that with a combination of with the older siblings helped out. And then they all ended up in Muskegon.
Why Muskegon? What was the big employer? How did they get, let's say go past Detroit or whatever to get to Muskegon? Do you know that story?
Yeah, it was because of the foundries, the factories there in Muskegon, and they could get employment. So that's where they ended up. And you often hear about people coming up from the South and family members that are already there, and they moved in with them.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. That's how they got on their feet and then moved into their own place and continued to live their lives, etc.
What's the foundry in Muskegon? Is it automotive or something else?
Um, it made parts for automotive,
Okay.
Camel, White and Cammon, um, Mesco. I'm probably not saying that right, but there's a number of different ones, but they made auto parts for the automotive industry.
Okay. Let me ask you this, if you don't mind. Is there going to your great grandfather or something like that in Mississippi? Is there some trauma in the family? Did the white people do something to him or any of those kind of things that we might you might want to share?
Well, I don't know a particular story, but it was just very hard in the South for Blacks. And so and employment was not there. Um, and just the way Blacks were treated in the South. My mother just recently died and she was like 96. So she dealt, she lived through a lot of that. And, this whole idea that you had separate drinking fountains, you had separate, places that you went or you couldn't go, that kind of thing. I don't know a specific story that said they didn't pack up in the middle of the night and took off like you
Yeah,
hear
right.
about some people, but that wasn't the case. They just wanted a better life.
Who introduced you to Black history? How did you become who you are to dedicate your life like you have?
Well, I just has been just a strong interest in knowing the history because we didn't get it in school. And I think the idea of knowing it and sharing it became very important to me. Uh, Not like you said, not only for blacks, but for whites and for our younger generation coming up. So it was just an interest that I had, and it wasn't something that was easily um, gotten in our school
Yeah.
system in Muskegon Heights.
Did your parents try to like? Did you read Ebony and Jet, and that kind of gave you some entree to the world of Black America, or was there a
Yeah,
book that you read on your own, or anything like that?
we had, we subscribed to Ebony and Jet. That was a big part of our home. And so you always got those magazines and went through them from the cover to the back. So that was really very, very good to have that come into the home.
Who,
So
uh,
I
who,
read, I'm a reader. I
yeah,
love to read.
okay.
So
So who encouraged you to do so well in school? How did you and I take no liberties in this, not succumb to the community, if
um,
that's such a term.
well, because my parents, they didn't have the opportunity to go on to college. They had my mom went as far as eighth grade, and I think my dad was about the same. They just wanted us to have better opportunities and really encouraged us to go on with our education.
We're gonna get to the story about the museum, but I want people to. I want to ask you. Okay, so you know a lot. Let's say you're doing very well in school. Your parents only go to eighth grade. Were they embarrassed by that?
No, I always think about my grandfather. While he didn't have book sense, he had a lot of common sense. And so that was just the way it was. And they were very smart. They didn't have the books. And my mom was, if she had opportunities, she would have really gone a long way. She's just very intelligent, very smart. And so they use that common sense. Sometimes they say they work with people that had book sense, but didn't have any common sense. And you often heard that said in our house. So no, they weren't. I mean, they weren't given opportunities, but they wanted us to have those opportunities.
What is there a difference between in your mind, and now that you are who you are, a difference between how you grew up, and let's say somebody black who grew up and their parents were educated, they went, so on and so forth. Did you feel something different between you and them, and kind of wish that was your case?
No, it just inspired me. It was a different stories that you learned from different lives, people that you met. Like I'm in a number of organizations, and it was really nice to hear about other people's backgrounds, and it was inspirational and also helped you to grow. Maybe there's things that you didn't learn about in your household when you got older and you were doing things in a different setting or within the organization. You thought, oh, I never knew that, or I'll try that. I'll do that way. You just learned and grew from it.
Did you feel white people were better than black people?
I think they thought they were. I didn't feel that way.
Because when you looked at, they had the bigger houses, better neighborhood, the better schools. Because was your school somewhat inferior to theirs?
When you're growing up, you know what you know. And so I didn't really see it as being inferior. It's just that like I said, at one point, our school was about 50-50 black, white. And then as whites started to move out, then it became predominantly black, the neighborhoods and the schools. But I never thought about it being inferior. It was just
Yeah.
that's what my life was. I went to that school, I learned, I went on from there. So I didn't think about it that way.
Is there some stories in Muskegon from a Black history standpoint that you can tell us that most people might not know, like a civil rights type march or something like that, or going back in the day, Dr. King maybe came through, any of those kind of things that we might not know?
I really can't think of a particular story. I know my mom was always active in NAACP. She was a life member. So she was involved with NAACP. I can't think of a story right off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look back at it, what did you learn about Black history as a kid? And what were you taught in school? What's the normal things everybody teach? And then what did you do that you took it to the next level that nobody knew? Was there a book that you read, anything like that?
So I through observations, I knew that you never really heard about the accomplishments of Black people. So
Okay.
that was really of interest to me because Blacks have done so much in terms of inventions and things that were started. Oftentimes those things are left out. Like when you think about Hidden Figures. I mean, I've seen that movie a number of times, but who would have known? I mean, that's something we could have known growing up. But that's just a movie that came out just not too long ago. So those kinds of things really had my interest because the stories weren't being told. And we've done so much. We're brilliant people. And traveling to Egypt and learning about that whole piece in terms of the pyramids, et cetera, it's just sparked my interest. I went on a tour, and that was after high school, but I went with Asa Hilliard on a study tour to Egypt.
Oh.
And so there's just so many wonderful things that we've done. And so to me, it's like if we don't tell the story, oftentimes it's not going to be told. So that really sparked my interest as well.
So somehow you and some others came up with the idea of having a museum in Ann Arbor.
That is correct.
How did all that, like, how was the initial meetings? Come to my house. We need to do this because there's stories, or you had heard of some and didn't see it being publicized. How did that happen?
Well, actually, I don't know if you're familiar with Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority.
Yeah.
Um, and we had a Founders Day celebration, and Dr. Margaret Burroughs was our keynote speaker, and she's the co-founder of the DuSable Museum in Chicago. And she's at the end of her talk, she challenged us. She said, "You have history here. You need to start a museum here." And so when she did that, I actually was on the committee that year, the Founders Day committee, and we passed around a sheet for people to sign up to start working on a museum. And that's how it started. I always like to say an idea without action remains a dream. And while the idea came from Dr. Burroughs, it was those initial founding members that got this going that made this dream a reality. So that's how it started at Alpha Kappa Alpha Founders Day celebration.
Did you know at that time that there was enough history in Ann Arbor to have a museum?
I didn't know that it was as much as it is. I knew there was history here. And she's the one that said, you got history in maybe because of her background. But as I started to work on it and the people that we've interviewed, I mean, it's been wonderful to learn about the history and what people have shared with us that I didn't know and a lot of people didn't know about. So we've done some projects where we interview African Americans that have lived in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, all of most of our life, because this is a Washtenaw County museum. So it encompasses Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. And so we interviewed 60 plus people, and the stories they've told, it's really been a gift or blessing to me because I've done a lot of the interviews, and it's just been wonderful to share that information with the greater community.
Uh, so when y'all first opened, and I'm asking these questions because if somebody's watching this and they need to do a museum, you give us a step by step of
Okay.
how, because there's other people who might be watching this that need to know, well, what do I do? Because we don't have one. What would you suggest?
Well, the first thing is, like I said, we passed a sheet around that day and got a list of people that were interested. Then we formed our first committee meeting. We met a number of times. We even invited Dr. Wright, Charles H. Wright, to come and meet with us. So he gave us some instructions and suggestions. After that, we filed our papers with the state and we became a museum. But what we realized is that when we finally got our paperwork, we said, we don't have any money, we don't have a place, and none of us who are working on this have ever started a museum. So I always share the quote that comes to mind is Dr. Martin Luther King's quote: faith is taking the first step when you don't see the whole staircase. So we decided, okay, so we don't have those things, but we're going to move forward as a museum anyway. So we became a museum without walls. And we did that. Really, a big part of that was by collaborating with other organizations in the area. And that way we were able to use their resources, their financial resources, their people, their buildings, etc., to move forward. So we partnered with a number of organizations. For instance, we did a 4-year research project with the University of Michigan, and we identified 16 Underground Railroad stops in Ann Arbor and 16 in Ypsi. And we now do tours. We've been doing tours for over 10 years. So that's just one example of how, and we didn't have a building. We were just still having exhibits and programs, etc. So we became a museum without walls, and we continued to move forward to try to raise funds. And then finally, we ended up with our permanent site. I missed a couple of steps in there, but we had to rent a couple places. We got an office space, and then we finally ended up this past year buying a place.
Wow, that's incredible. Uh, what was the what was the first thing that y'all found out about? Or you found out that you wanted to put in the museum,
Well, we let people know that
other than
we're
the
collecting
Underground Railroad?
artifacts.
Yes, yeah.
And so we have a number of artifacts. We connected with churches because we wanted things from Black churches because that draws people in. One of the big pieces we have, and this is not the first piece, but we have a pew from Brown Chapel AME. I think it's the oldest Black church here in the area. And we've got things from the Buffalo Soldiers. We just have a whole lot. What we realize though is we don't have a lot of space. So our collection committee needs to sort of, if you want to donate something, then we have to then have them take a look to see, where we can put it, if we can use it. Because we don't want to take your stuff and just stick it someplace and never have it on display. So we have a number of things that we have. We have a lot of our information online, which I'm excited about. I mentioned the Living Oral History Project where we interview African Americans. And so all those interviews are online. And that was a partnership, once again, another partnership, which has been wonderful with the Ann Arbor District Library. And that is who partnered with us to actually do the interviews. We do the interviews, they provide the technical support. It's on their website, it's also on our website. So, partnering and just moving forward, even though you don't, like I said, we didn't have money, we didn't have a building, and none of us had started a museum before.
Yeah, I love it. Well, okay. I'm gonna delve in this a little bit. How did you find out who to interview?
Who to interview?
Yes.
We decided we wanted to interview people from Ann Arbor, Ypsi that lived all or most of their lives in the Ann Arbor, Ypsi area. And we really wanted to start with people like in 90s. We interviewed a couple of people there and there. That was 100. We interviewed people in their 80s. And so we did that we've done like 10, uh, 10 sessions or 10, times that we've done 10, I'm trying to get the right word here, 10 sessions. So we did one each year. And then I had to chuckle and laugh and say that we've done people in their hundreds, their 80s, their 90s. Then we decided we need to go a little bit younger because we've done a lot and so we started doing people in their 70s. So we wanted to do the older people because, we wanted to capture their history or what they had to share before they were no longer with us.
Is there one of those stories that made you cry or moved you the most?
Oh, there were
If you
so
could
many.
share one of them, share
Let
with
me
us.
see. Okay, I know that well, first of all, John Barfield was one of the people we interviewed from Ypsilanti. And he didn't end up in Ann Arbor, but he started out as a custodian at the University of Michigan. And he went from there to doing his own cleaning business and then went on to become, a billionaire in terms of his company. And his son still runs that company. So that's one inspirational story. And he also published a book about his life. We also heard about um, a number of people in Ann Arbor lived on the on the west side, and that area was predominantly Black, and that the Carytown area used to be predominantly Black, and there used to be a Black business district in Ann Arbor and in Ypsi. And who knows that there used to be Black business district? And Nelson Freeman told a story about how Blacks couldn't be buried in the same cemetery with whites. And when they finally did, they had the Blacks facing one direction from the whites and the whites the other direction. So there's so many wonderful stories. So, I encourage people to go online and listen to some of those interviews.
Yeah. You also alluded to that there were a number of Underground Railroad sites there in Ann Arbor. What were those sites like? And were there houses, churches? I'm sure a combination of those. And could you tell us a little bit about some of the sites?
Right. Primarily houses. And like I said, we did, and there's a number of them up along Pontiac Trail. And that's where we were renting a space on Pontiac Trail prior to buying our place we are now. But the research project, like I said, was a 4-year research project with the University of Michigan. And one of the lead people that worked on that from our side, we had people on the University of Michigan side, and the museum side was Willie Edwards. She's no longer with us, and she was a founding member, and she was a librarian for almost 40 years. So it was a great fit for her to work on this project. So we ended up, so you can sign up for tours now, and there's 16 in Ann Arbor, 16 in Ypsilanti, and we offer them in the spring and summer, but you also can sign up just if you're having a family reunion or you have an organization that just want to do a modified tour, we can do that, but they're primarily in homes, hidden passages and things in homes.
I'm sure a lot of people would wonder, maybe those who have been watching me a lot, why is there an Underground Railroad site in Michigan and in Ann Arbor? I mean, once you get to Michigan, in many respects, you can say you kind of free, but that's not the case. Why were they there?
Well, they were runaway slaves and they were trying to make their way, a lot of them trying to make their way to Canada. So they came through Michigan, um, Ann Arbor, Detroit, and on over into Canada. So that was some of the reason why.
But Ann Arbor is not towards Canada. So if they came to Detroit, they didn't have to go to Ann Arbor. Why would they go to Ann Arbor?
Maybe that was, I don't really have an
Yeah.
answer. Maybe that's just a stop on the Underground Railroad. They had to stop someplace to eat, refresh, etc.
Are there some abolitionists that y'all know, be it black or white, that really made a significant impact in helping in the Underground Railroad?
Right. Like there's a family called the Asher Array family, and they were conductors on the Underground Railroad, and we just featured them in a book that we just published. So that's one of the families. We also,
But they white or black?
they were, well, you know how that, well, yeah, I'm going to say biracial, but they went
Okay,
as
I got you.
Black.
I got
Yeah.
you.
So, and we have the book also talks about the role of the Kersey family. Like published a book, and it's called The Family Foundation. We featured 4 families that came here in the 1800s, and so in that book it talks about them being part of the Underground Railroad, conductors, or being part of the Underground Railroad. So those are 2 family names that come to mind right now.
Uh, when we talk about the Underground Railroad, we also have to mention, are there instances where slave catchers came to Ann Arbor area to and retrieve somebody, or attempted to, and the community wouldn't let them do it? Any of those kind of stories?
Well, I really don't have that information but one of the person that's doing our tours now would be a great person to ask
Yeah.
question to. But it's just like I said, when you do the tour, I would encourage people to do the tour. You'll get a lot more detailed information. The tour was originally done by Willie Edwards, who was a founder and no longer with us, and now the tours are being done by Deborah Meadows, and she does a wonderful job. And you get a lot more detailed information as opposed to us on this call today.
As we move up the timeline in the Ann Arbor area, were there protests of any sort? civil rights protests or any of those? Did Dr. King come through Ann Arbor? Any of that kind of story?
I don't recall Dr. King coming to there. And I didn't grow up here.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
moved here uh, as an adult.
yes.
I came here in my 20s. So some of that I missed, but I know that a big thing you hear talking about at the University of Michigan is BAM, the Black Action Movement. And the college students really protested in terms of getting more rights, treatment that was happening at the University of Michigan. So BAM is a big thing you often hear about, the BAM strike, the BAM movement.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
that's something people might want to Google to learn more about.
Uh, do you know of how about this one? Do you know that there were slaves in the Ann Arbor area before they abolished it in Michigan?
Um, Slaves in terms of having their own freedom or
No, that they were enslaved because there was slavery in Michigan before like
right.
1830, 1840, I guess, before the state abolished it. Is there
Okay.
stories of that?
Can't tell you right off the tip of my tongue, but I'm sure there were. And you probably know yourself because you've done a lot of research. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would think so. What
mm.
what are some of the other exhibits that you all have had in the museum? Does the exhibits change?
They do change.
Okay.
Um, One of the exhibits we did, and we do, well, let me just name a couple and tell you what we have up right now. So one of the exhibits we did was the Living Oral History exhibit. So remember I said that we interviewed people. Then we decided that we wanted to actually do an exhibit of those people we interviewed. It's called the Living Oral History exhibit. And all the people we interviewed also became a part of that exhibit. And so it was their stories. It wasn't like we had to go dig and do research. It was them that was telling the story. So we did that exhibit, and we actually received a grant to do it. And then when we celebrated 10 years of this project, we added to the exhibit because the original exhibit only had the original people we interviewed. And then we added the rest of the people. That's the Living Oral History exhibit. We also had an exhibit up on the Great Migration, and we actually got borrowed some pieces from Jacob Lawrence collection, and that was up. And we interviewed some of our elders from the community. We did a video piece to go along with it. And we did, I don't know if you're familiar with John Lockhart. He was a
Yeah.
Black artist in the area. And so his wife, Leslie, allowed us to borrow some of his pieces. And so we put that up as an exhibit. And then we did the family foundations where we identified 4 families that came here in the early 1800s. And the families we did, we know they weren't the only ones, but we had to start someplace. So we did the Jewett family, and the great grandfather, George Jewett, was the first Black football player at the University of Michigan. They now have a trophy in his honor or a plaque. And he also went to Northwestern. And so what they do now, a few years ago, they actually did a ceremony honoring him. And whoever wins the game when they play takes possession of that trophy. So it goes
Oh,
back and forth. We interviewed, that was the Asher Ray family I just mentioned, and they were from the Pittsfield Township area. And the Bass family, Michael Bass, played for the University of Michigan. He also played professional football. His parents were in Ypsi. He grew up in Ypsi. And the Kersey family, Theron Kersey and Mike Terrence Vick. So we did 4 families. We did the exhibit. It was a traveling exhibit. First, it started at the museum when we were on Pontiac Trail. Then it went to Washington Community College. Then the exhibit went to the Ann Arbor District Library. And then so we took from that exhibit, we put that exhibit in a book. So that book is now published. And so that book is available for people to purchase. And that way you still have that information once the exhibit comes down. So that's just some of them. And right now we have an exhibit up, and it's just different artifacts that we've had in our collection. We have a Buffalo Soldier uniform. We have some, first pieces that different people donated early on, pictures. So we have a variety of artifacts on display right now.
almost as we come to a close, and you just alluded to some of the documents. What have you? Do you have like any documents that that you get? Say, hey, this is really noted, like slave flyers looking for runaways, anything like original documents that someone has donated, anything like
Yeah,
that?
we do have some original pieces. I can't tell you all the original documents,
Yeah, yeah.
but we do have those, and some of those are on display. We've got crisis magazines, early crisis magazines on
Okay,
display,
okay,
documents that people have given us. And so, yeah, so I encourage people to, we're open on Saturdays and Sundays from 12 to 4.
okay.
And so it might be a good opportunity to come and see our new site. We're really, let me say this about our site. We just purchased this site. It's a historical site, and we're just blessed to be able to do that. And we purchased it from Kip Lightfoot, and his mother was a founding member of the museum, and his father was stepfather was one of the first Black architects in the Ann Arbor area. So that used to be his office. It's a farmhouse. So that's now our permanent site for our museum. And we purchased it. I always like to share this because I'm so excited. Mortgage free. We had managed.
Ah,
We never raised a lot of money. We've always been kind of but we managed well. So when the opportunity came, we had funds to purchase the site.
oh, that's incredible. Um, Shucks, I had one more. Are you proud of yourself? Because you stuck to this for a long time.
A long time, a labor of love, Anthony.
Yeah. I mean, and because I mean, I'm taking liberties. You got a job and things, other things that you do, but
Right.
you said I'm going to help make this happen, and you and the committee, and y'all stuck with this for how many years since you said
It's been
since the
about 30 years.
30 years?
Hmm. And let me say this to Anthony. We've been all volunteers. I mean, these are people that volunteer. We recently got a grant, and we're going to be able to hire. We want to move from a working board so that to a policy making board. I think that's what it is. And in other words, we want somebody to run the museum. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, I
uh,
got you.
and we have funds now to hire an executive director. So we're going to begin that process.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Another question just came to mind. Have y'all done any archaeological digs, like grave sites where that people didn't know or anything like that? Have y'all ever done any of those kind of things?
No, we haven't done any digs, but on the Underground Railroad stop, we go to a grave that's in Pittsville Township. It's connected to the Asher Ray family. And we talk about who's buried in that graveyard. Yeah.
Oh
So
man,
no
that's
dig.
great. And,
Right.
and and again, the name of the museum is what?
The African American Cultural and Historical Museum of Washtenaw County. And that was
Uh,
important because even though it's housed in Ann Arbor, we want people to know that it's the museum for all of Washtenaw County.
yeah. What's the website?
aachm.org.
And are you all responsible for the Black History? I think it was Juneteenth for something event that happens every year. Do y'all have something like that?
We don't sponsor, but we support it.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Because I know I was there last year for that. Yeah, everybody had copies of my book on the little table there, and so quite a
Okay.
few of them right downtown Ann Arbor. I do remember
Right.
that.
Yeah.
One more thing. What's next for the museum? What other than hiring somebody? What would you like to see next?
Well, the big part is hiring someone and then hiring some more people.
Yeah.
I like to see us have staff doing all um, parts of the museum. We have, somebody that's doing development, somebody's doing marketing, curating art. We have people that work on curation. They've done a wonderful job, but just somebody that's permanently on staff. And then as we raise more money, maybe even expanding our space. We have a little bit of property around that we could expand, but I'm just so happy now that we have our own permanent site, mortgage free.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Have you all gotten an award for your efforts? Like the National Museum Association, do groups like that? Have
Yeah,
they found out about you all?
yeah, we actually got an award about a year ago from the NR Area Community Foundation for the work that we've done. And we've got proclamation from like the Pittsfield Township. We actually sat on the committee that made the site. We now have a historical site. So they gave us a beautiful proclamation and plaque. So the award we got came from the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation.
Another question come. Have y'all been responsible for identifying historical markers that need to be put up in Ann Arbor?
Well, there's a group that has done that.
Yes.
And we have been one of the things, like I said, I always am excited if somebody reach out to us to collaborate. So we recently was contacted about doing some more work, murals and stuff, and it could involve some more markers, but we're still working on that to identify certain sites, identify certain people, etc. So that's new. It's in process.
Since the beginning, you've learned a lot about running a museum.
I really have.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I really have.
And the other thing you might suggest to people is to research grants and stuff like that for money that is available for museums. That's correct, right?
That is correct. We've gotten a number of grants. And more recently, like I said, we got a grant that we can hire an executive director. And once again, that was kind of learning on the job. You just had to hang in there. You got some smaller grants and we got some bigger grants. And so, yeah, we don't have anybody dedicated to write grants. So we've done all of that as well.
One more. Do you all have a gala every year as a fundraiser?
Anthony, we did it for years. We did the dinner and jazz, and it was the first Sunday in December. And then we moved from that a couple of years. I mean, just before the pandemic, we moved it to a different site. We went to like a Travis Point and watched Travis Point, and I'm drawing a blank, but that was a fundraiser that we did, and we identified people in the community we want to recognize. It was a dinner, and then COVID hit. So we didn't do anything for several years. And then last year, we did a 30th anniversary celebration, and that was at the Kensington Court. But we kind of got away from it because of the pandemic. So we're slowly, like a lot of groups, we're slowly getting back into that because it's a great way to fundraise. Also to thank the community. When we started the dinner and jazz, it really more was a fundraiser because we wanted to thank people for their support over the years. So it wasn't really expensive, but it was dinner and jazz, which was great.
Oh, excellent. Is there a question that I have not asked?
I think you covered it, Anthony.
I covered it. Okay. I try to be as thorough to everybody.
You have been. You've been great. You've been great.
And so with that, I say, give us the website once again and how people, they can donate so that y'all can keep, and let's talk about that. Tell them donate.
Right, please donate. While we purchase a building and there's no mortgage, you got expenses when you're a homeowner or owner. And so we ask you to support us. You can go to our website. There's a place on our website to donate, aachm.org. So please support us with donations. And also visit our website. We'd love for you to see what's there. And also click onto our Living Oral History interviews so you can hear some of those wonderful, wonderful interviews.
Excellent. Well, hey, everybody, you know who I am, and you saw who she is. She's a pillar of that community and nationally known now and even internationally. So when you ever in the Detroit area and got time to drive, I like to say about 45 minutes, or you go up to University of Michigan, see that beautiful campus, so on and so forth, go by that museum and stop off and take the time to take the tours and learn some of that history that they will tell you so eloquently of what happened to help those enslaved Black folks reach even a better state of freedom. All right, do that. So go to the website, and everybody, you know who I am. I'm the guy that try to ask thorough questions, Anthony Brogdon. And so go to my website, businessintheblack.net. Do it today. Subscribe to this, Strong Inspirations. And I tell you, to you, I say, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I really love how you become from Muskegon to Ann Arbor, uh, and a pillar of the community, as I said once before. I'll continue to say, because you had and those on that committee this dream of preserving that history.
Yeah.
And y'all realize that too. You would say we've done very well. That's a question.
And so, Anthony, when you say committee, that I always like to say our founding members and our board, but
Yes,
founding members, yeah,
yeah. And y'all preserved that history.
right.
Y'all found some stuff y'all didn't know and put it out there for the public to know. And that's a beautiful thing.
Thank
And
you,
so,
Anthony.
congratulations is in order. Thank you so very much for coming on the show, everybody. With that, I'll say bye bye. We out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.